I'm Tony Wiggins with Locked On Jaguars. The Jaguars made it official. They selected Trevor Lawrence with the #1 pick, quarterback from Clemson. I think it's a franchise-changing move for the Jaguars to get this quarterback. He has no weaknesses in his game. And any weakness that some people may perceive that he has, I think it'll be corrected by scheme, and I think it'll be corrected by Urban Meyer getting him in the type of offense that will benefit him and show his strengths off. And whatever weakness that he has, they'll be hidden, and they can work on that. I think you have to surround him with the type of talent that allows him to get the ball out of his hand quickly. But I do think he'll have command of this offense. And more importantly, he'll have the confidence of his teammates, because everyone believes that this guy is the type of quarterback that can lead this team into the future. The fans are excited. The players are excited. The coach and the owner is even more excited. And this community is on fire. Trevor Lawrence is coming to Jacksonville to lead the Jaguars into the future. Let's see how it goes.
I'm John from Locked On Jets, and the New York Jets have their new quarterback of the future. With the 2nd overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, they have selected Zach Wilson out of BYU. This comes as no major surprise. All of the buzz in recent weeks has been that the Jets loved Wilson and that he was likely the pick, and there was no real incentive for the Jets to hide that because they knew Trevor Lawrence was going 1st overall, and they had the 2nd pick, which meant nobody could do anything to stop them from getting Wilson. Wilson has all the tools you could look for in a future franchise quarterback: a big arm, great accuracy, the ability to move within the pocket. He seems like a very good fit in new offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur's system, and hopefully he can help the Jets build a brighter future after a very difficult decade. For more on the Jets, subscribe to Locked On Jets, your team every day.
Brian Peacock here of Locked On 49ers, and that sound you heard, that was a massive collective sigh from Bay Area football fans who can now relax, and they know the fate of their football team with the #3 overall pick, and it is Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. And I think it's a prospect that most fans can get behind. The ceiling, the upside in this prospect is what the 49ers faithful out there were hoping for when the Niners traded up a month ago to pick #3. And there's been many arguments, there's been many photoshops of different prospects in a 49ers uniform since then, and I think the prevailing thought was that while Mac Jones had a nice season, was a nice prospect, that is not where 49ers fans wanted to go with this pick. They wanted higher upside. They wanted to see someone who could be a top quarterback in this league physically, and Trey Lance is it. I think Justin Fields was absolutely it as well, but the 49ers focused in on Trey Lance. I think the physical part is absolutely there, and you can't argue with the height, weight, speed. He's 6'4", 226 pounds, and has a cannon of an arm. He's a great runner of the football, and he's physical. All those things are exactly what you want your franchise quarterback to look like. But I think in the end, what sold the 49ers on Trey Lance, and I think what 49ers fans will love about Trey Lance, and what I am excited to see in this young man, is from the neck up. Everybody, to a person who meets Trey Lance, is blown away by his smarts, his intelligence, his character, his work ethic. And I think that is the superstar trait in the NFL. And that's what you need out of your quarterback. And if he has that, when you marry that with his physical skills, the sky is the limit for Trey Lance. Now, he's not a perfect prospect, even though he was nearly perfect in 2019, throwing 0 interceptions to 28 touchdowns and adding numerous others on the ground as a runner at North Dakota State. But his season in 2020 was nearly wiped out. He played 1 game, and so there's a lot of development still needed for a guy who played essentially 1 season of 1 AA football. But as far as talent goes, the sky's the limit. He's got the work ethic and the smarts to achieve that ceiling, and that has to be super exciting for 49ers fans out there. And now it's up to Kyle Shanahan to coach him up. You got your guy, coach him up, and we'll see how Trey Lance looks in a 49ers uniform. And it might not be that soon, actually, that we see him on the field starting games for the 49ers, depending on what happens with Jimmy Garoppolo and how Trey Lance's development goes. The prevailing wisdom is maybe he could sit for an entire year. I think he might be more ready to play than people give him credit for, and I expect to see him on the field in 2021.
The Falcons take the top playmaker in the 2021 NFL Draft in Kyle Pitts. I'm Aaron Freeman with Locked On Falcons. The Falcons took the top non-quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft class in Florida tight end Kyle Pitts. Universally hailed as a generational tight end, he's the highest tight end selected in NFL draft history, as well as the first tight end to be selected in the top 5 in 50 years. Pitts adds another weapon to an already loaded Falcons offense. This pick is just as much a commitment to quarterback Matt Ryan as it is to Pitts. And new Falcons head coach Arthur Smith is now proclaiming to the world that with this phenomenal young pass catcher added to the mix, he can get this Falcons offense humming back to elite levels. For more on the Atlanta Falcons 2021 draft class, follow Locked On Falcons, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The pick is in, and another star pass catcher is headed to Cincinnati. Hi again, everyone. I'm James Erpine from the Locked On Bengals podcast, and Ja'Marr Chase is Cincy bound. He's set to reunite with Joe Burrow as the Bengals take Chase with the 5th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. There's a ton to like about Chase, who was the top-ranked player on the Bengals board ahead of Oregon tackle PENEI because, well, he's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's a downfield threat, and he blossomed at such a young age. So much to like. Clearly the number one choice for the Bengals. And yeah, offensive line's an issue. They plan on addressing that on day 2 and day 3 of the draft. But for now, it's all about chasing Chase. And the Bengals caught him, even though opposing cornerbacks struggled to do that in college. Looks like Burrow and Chase not only reunited, they'll look to recapture the magic in the Queen City.
Matt Derry here from Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network. The Lions have made their selection at number 7. They do not trade down. Instead, they snag PENEI, the big tackle out of Oregon, with the 7th overall selection. Not a surprise, the Lions very, very happy that Sewell is there. They feel he's the best player available on their board. Plus, he fits a need. The Lions are desperate for a right tackle to go opposite of Taylor Decker. Sewell's been working out at Oregon at both left and right tackle to prepare for this moment. This was a no-brainer from Brad Holmes, the first-year general manager, in getting the best player available, getting a tackle, addressing a need on that offensive line, and building and waiting for a receiver and maybe a safety later on in the draft at the skill position spot. Go big early. That's what the Lions do. I like the pick of PENEI at number 7.
I'm Julian Council, host of the Locked On Panthers podcast, and the Carolina Panthers, with the 8th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, select South Carolina cornerback JAYCEE Horn. Honestly, this is actually not much of a shock. I was actually talking to someone on Saturday night that told me that the team was absolutely in love with Horn, didn't want to go out there and play their cards, but they wanted JAYCEE Horn. The only thing that surprised me a little bit was Justin Fields on the board. There was a lot of talk about Carolina, that they're intrigued by Fields where they would want him, but if they didn't want him, maybe potentially they could trade back. So I'm not surprised at all that Carolina took JAYCEE Horn. I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't trade back to a quarterback needy team and then potentially select Horn there. But I get it. That's their guy. That's who they wanted. If you look at the Panthers' secondary situation, especially at corner, they just signed AJ Boye, who had a miserable season in Denver, who's going to be suspended for the first 2 games of the 2021 season after breaking the NFL substance abuse policy. You also have Dante Jackson going to the last year of his deal. Not quite sure whether he's a long-term fit or not. He could be gone. So the same thing with Boye. So the Carolina Panthers needed to find a long-term option there at corner, and they've done that by selecting JAYCEE Horn 8th overall. And honestly, I like the pick. I'm surprised that they got him at 8, but still, they got the guy that they wanted. If the guy you want is on the board, go ahead and take him. The Carolina Panthers did that by taking JAYCEE Horn 8th overall in the 2021 draft.
In a shocking turn of events, with the 9th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select cornerback Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. Justin Fields, quarterback out of Ohio State, was available, so it was a shocker to many in Broncos country that Surtain was the selection. But for the Denver Broncos, they were getting an all-American athletic cornerback who can play press man, he can play off man, he can play zone coverage. And when you factor in the expiring deals, Kyle Fuller's on a 1-year deal with the Broncos, and then Bryce Callahan has 1 year remaining as well on his current contract. Cornerback and depth at that position was an area of need that the Broncos wanted to address, not just now, but in the long term, and Surtain is that option. While it may not be the flashy pick, the Broncos could still look at maybe making a run for Aaron Rodgers post-June 1st as it pertains to salary cap for the Green Bay Packers organization. The Broncos were in talks with the Packers today. Nothing accumulated, but there is interest, and Aaron Rodgers would have interest in coming to Denver. So quarterback may not be completely out of the table for the Broncos at this point, despite the fact that they traded for Teddy Bridgewater yesterday. I'm Cody Rourke, host of Lockdown Broncos. We're going to break this all down on the latest episode of the show on your favorite podcast provider.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles did what the fans wanted them to do in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. I'm Louis DiBiase of the Locked On Eagles podcast. The Eagles move up from the 12th overall pick to number 10 with their rival, the Dallas Cowboys, giving up the 84th overall pick in the third round to select Alabama wide receiver DeVonta Smith. It's the guy that I think this entire fan base really wanted, and it's the guy this Eagles team desperately needs. Yes, you took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the second round of 2019. You took Jalen Reagor in the first round of 2020. You admit your mistakes here, that those guys aren't going to be your top receiver, and you push that ego to the side and take DeVonta, the Heisman winner, at number 10. And that's going to take the pressure off Reagor. It's going to take the pressure off Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders. Overall, I am not concerned about the weight. I think this guy is an elite separator, great run after the catch ability, incredible length. So although he's not the heaviest receiver, his length really makes up for that. And I think he's just an overall complete stud that Nick Sirianni is going to love in this offense. And it really does help Jalen Hurts develop and see if he can be the guy in 2021. The Eagles take DeVonta Smith in the first round. Up next, I'd expect a cornerback at number 37 or wherever their next pick is. Louis DiBiase, Locked On Eagles.
Wow. This might be the most exciting draft day in Chicago Bears history. I'm Lorin Cox from the Locked On Bears podcast. Not only do we get Aaron Rodgers disgruntled and potentially leaving Green Bay, but then the Chicago Bears trade up and get the steal of the first round with Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields. We didn't think the Bears would have any shot at a top quarterback in this draft without completely mortgaging their future. But unlike the San Francisco 49ers, the Bears only had to give up one future first-round pick and a couple of day 3 change picks down the line to get one of the most accurate quarterbacks in this NFL draft. Throw away all the concerns about going through his reads, going through his progressions. We've seen him make special throws at Ohio State, and he gives Bears fans new hope and a chance at redemption from what we felt like we missed out on 4 years ago. We'll have a complete breakdown on the Locked On Bears podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, that certainly wasn't what we expected to happen. I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys, and after being wiped out at picks 8 and 9 with JC Horn and Patrick Surtain, respectively, the Cowboys trade with the Philadelphia Eagles of all teams to move back 2 spots and select Penn State linebacker Micah Parsons. It will be interesting to see exactly what Dallas's plan is with Parsons, as they clearly have a lot of linebackers already on the squad. But until we hear from Dan Quinn and the Cowboys Brain Trust, it'll be lots of speculation in Cowboys land exactly how this defensive player fits. I do like that they were able to get some compensation. They weren't forced to pick at 10. Now the Cowboys have 4 picks on day 2 to try to continue to upgrade.
What's up, guys? This is Daniel Wade here from Locked On Chargers. And with the 13th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Chargers selected offensive tackle RASHAWN SLATER from Northwestern. This is huge news for Chargers fans because I saw everyone on Chargers Twitter waiting and seeing Slater drop and drop. He makes it to pick 13 because teams like Chicago ended up trading up to go and get Justin Fields. This ends up helping the Chargers. A run on corners in the top 10 ends up helping the Chargers. And even though the top tackle prospect, PENEI SEWELL, ends up going at 7, RASHAWN SLATER is able to fall all the way to pick 13. This is huge for the Chargers. They do have needs defensively, but going into this draft, the number 1 need that they had was at left tackle. Head coach Brandon Staley ended up saying so himself that they had a hole there. Tom Telesco was playing coy about it, but in the end, the Chargers make the no doubt about it move. They bring in RASHAWN SLATER, and now going into 2021, they have completely revamped the offensive line. They ended up now with 4 new starters that should be in front of Justin Herbert. And since Staley has taken over, they have been committed to changing and improving this offensive line. With the 13th pick in the first round, the Chargers continue that. They end up getting the best player available and fill their biggest need with Northwestern tackle RASHAWN SLATER.
This is John from Locked On Jets. The New York Jets began the 2021 NFL Draft picking their new quarterback of the future as they selected Zach Wilson with the 2nd overall pick. The Jets had an additional first-round pick as a result of the Jamal Adams trade last summer, and they used it to trade up with the Minnesota Vikings, moving from 23 to 14 in the first round. In the deal, the Jets gave up a pair of third-round picks and received a late fourth-round pick from Minnesota. With the 14th pick, the Jets picked offensive lineman ALIJAH VERA-TUCKER from USC. This is the second straight year the Jets have used a first-round pick on an offensive lineman. Last year, they selected Mekhi Becton 11th overall. Prior to Becton, the Jets had not picked an offensive lineman in the first round since 2006. So Joe Douglas, the Jets general manager, is making overdue investments in the offensive line. Sam Darnold failed in part because the Jets failed to surround him with the right pieces, including up front. So this is a welcome addition for the New York Jets. For more on the Jets, subscribe to Locked On Jets, your team every day.
With the 15th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select quarterback Mac Jones out of the University of Alabama. I'm Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots, and apparently the Patriots knew who they wanted all along. Sitting there at number 15 was in fact their quarterback of the future. No need to trade up. The Patriots snagged Mac Jones with the 15th pick, and I know this pick is going to be polarizing across the fan base. I get it. The knock on Mac Jones is he has limitations outside the pocket, but he has great field awareness. He's shown the ability to move up in the pocket and make a strike when he feels the heat, and he can do so on time. The best way to fit into the Patriots offense is to win pre-snap reads, make anticipatory throws, and demonstrate the ability to get the ball out on time. Mac Jones can do that, and the team the Patriots surround him with will allow him to do that. In New England, he will have a play caller in Josh McDaniels that can utilize his strengths. He'll have playmakers around him, and he'll have protection on a very good offensive line. But what does the selection of Mac mean for the rest of the team? Tune into Locked On Patriots on Friday and all of next week as we continue to break down the selection of Mac Jones at number 15 for the New England Patriots. Again, Locked On Patriots is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Arizona Cardinals decide to take the linebacker out of Tulsa, ZAVEN Collins. The big boy, he's thick. Alex Clancy, Bo Brock, Locked On Cardinals. After months of speculation, we thought they would go the biggest need as far as the cornerback position, but I guess Steve Keim, enamored with Collins, didn't want to go with the wide receiver. I guess if you look at how the draft dominoes fell, Alex, ZAVEN Collins, tackle machine for the Golden Hurricanes, and he's a guy that, as I said, big, get after the passer, pretty versatile. I think that's the key when you talk about a Steve Keim draft pick.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Somebody much smarter than me once said that, was credited with that statement. Steve Keim has not learned his lesson, and the issue is not the pick. He's a talented cat, okay? They broke the top 25 for the majority of the year last year. Take that as you wish with Tulsa. They had bigger needs, and that's the thing that got me. And I know Caleb Farley had his back issues. Greg Newsome was there. They had other needs that were more important than linebacker that's a pseudo pass rusher tackle machine at 6'3", 260. That's the issue I have with the pick. And obviously, we don't know how it's going to translate, but we do know that Steve Keim does what he wants, and hopefully this time it'll work out.
For the fourth year in a row, Peter Schrager has nailed his final draft pick. He has intel as far as who the Arizona Cardinals are going to select. He said that they love this kid, ZAVEN Collins, newest member of the Arizona Cardinals. Looking ahead to the second round, the needs remain wide receiver, cornerback. We'll see if Steve Keim can select a player, fill those needs. Bo Brock, Alex Clancy, listen to the full breakdown of the ZAVEN Collins pick on Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network.
Operation That's So ZAVEN initiated.
I'm your boy Q, host of the Locked On Raiders podcast, and the Raiders, with the number 17 overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, decided to go with offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama. And as much as I love Alabama and what they bring to the table and the fact that they are trained like pros, they play like pros, they're the next thing to pros, this is definitely a pick that I did not see coming at number 17. I think it's way too high for Alex Leatherwood. I think he's a guy that the Raiders could have gotten in round 2. I think he's a guy the Raiders could have traded back and picked up in round 2 or a little bit later in round 1. Don't think that was a good decision. I feel like it was a major reach at number 17. And I know that the Raiders, they have a tendency to go ahead and just stick with the guys that they see fit and want to roll with. But Alex Leatherwood at 17, not a very good pick. The value is not there, in my opinion. Good player, potentially a really good player. Just don't see him at 17. Again, it's just minutes following the pick, but don't think that they got the value they could have got. If you're trying to get offensive tackle at 17, Christian DARRISAW was still on the board. He was a very good offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. I felt he was a little bit higher. And also in a very deep offensive tackle draft, you probably could have got one a little bit later. Second round, again, you could have got Alex Leatherwood and probably got a defensive stud at 17. But all in all, it's a done deal. Round one is done for the Raiders. They go number 17 overall, Alex Leatherwood out of the University of Alabama.
David Harrison here of the Locked On Washington Football Team podcast, and all offseason leading up to the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. My co-host Chris Russell and I have identified linebacker as being a position of need to address for the Washington Football Team franchise, and they did so on Thursday night with the 19th overall pick. Selected linebacker JAMIN Davis out of Kentucky. JAMIN, a versatile player, can play inside, can play outside. Could develop into the future Mike linebacker for this defense, or if they need him to, he does have some experience as a will linebacker. He doesn't have a lot of experience overall, which is one of the more concerning parts about this player, but with the more experience he has gotten, he's only gotten better. So the thought process here for the Washington Football Team has to be more reps, more ability to develop, and he's a guy with low tread on his off his tires, and with the right coaching, right scenario, could get even better and turn into one of the better starters in the National Football League, and definitely a key piece to the future for a young Washington Football Team defense that certainly just got better in the first round of this year's NFL Draft. For more on this pick and everything Washington Football Team related, find Chris Russell and I over the Locked On Washington Football Team podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Giant fans? This is Patricia Traina, host of the Locked On Giants podcast. And with the 20th overall pick in the NFL Draft, a pick that the Giants acquired via trade from the Chicago Bears, New York selects Florida wide receiver KADARIUS Toney. Toney is 5'11", 190 pounds, and he's somewhat new to playing the receiver position, having been a high school quarterback. But he's an electric player who, in addition to his pass-catching abilities, can rush the ball, he can return kickoffs and punts, he can be a gadget type of player who can do all kinds of things on offense, including a little wildcat if need be. But while it's still to be determined as to how the Giants coaches plan to deploy him in the offense, it's clear that the Giants remain committed to adding playmakers to last year's 31st ranked scoring offense. For more on the New York Giants draft, check out the Locked On Giants podcast all weekend long.
Hello, this is Evan Sidery, the host of Locked On Colts here. And the Indianapolis Colts just drafted KWITY PAYE, the edge rusher out of Michigan, the 21st overall pick in this year's draft. And what a grand slam fit this is for both prospect and team. PAYE is going to be alongside DeForest Buckner, a great fit in the Colts 4-3 defense. PAYE and Buckner is going to wreak complete havoc on opposing offensive lines every single time. It's going to be so fun to watch PAYE alongside Buckner and also Darius Leonard fighting through the cracks as the linebacker. It's going to be, I think, just, it's an A-plus pick. I mean, I'm over the moon if you're a Colts fan about this, because PAYE is probably the best pass rusher the Colts had since Robert Mathis, and probably the best first-round draft pick the Colts have had as an edge rusher since Dwight Freeney. And that's not mincing words there. PAYE is a freak athlete. He's a team captain. He's also a high character traits player. And he also has everything the Colts would look for in prospects. He fits the blue star mold, which is what I've talked about on the podcast before, with those character traits, as well as being able to have the on-field production and the athleticism as well as the Colts covet, with a +9 RAS score. KWITY PAYE, now in Indianapolis, is going to be one of the best bets I would make, honestly, for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's never going to be double-teamed, and DeForest Buckner next to him, it's going to be an easy transition. He'll be a day one starter, rarely get off the field with his plus run-setting ability as well. PAYE is a player year one with the potential of being an 8 to 10 plus sack player. This is a grand slam pick. Indianapolis Colts just got an A+ for what they just did in the first round. There's still a lot of offensive tackles available too as well. So they can hit on one at 54 overall. But KWITY PAYE is now Indianapolis Colts. Colts fans rejoice on this one.
Tyler Rowland here, host of the Locked On Titans podcast. With the 22nd pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Caleb Farley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. At one point in time during the pre-draft process, Caleb Farley was considered the consensus #1 cornerback in the class. But issues he had with his back during college and then a back surgery earlier in the year found him falling down the board. The Titans, as they did in 2019 with defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons, take a risk on a player who has some injury concerns but could pay major dividends with his immense talent. Farley has great size at the position at 6'2". He also has elite speed for a cornerback as well that not only helps him stay with wide receivers, but helps him recover if for any reason he does get beat. And the reasons he would get beat is his ability to play press coverage at the line of scrimmage. Definitely something he has to work on at the next level. But the biggest issue, of course, will be that injured back. Can Caleb Farley stay healthy long term for the Titans? But if he does, John Robinson once again got a major steal with possibly the most talented player at a big position of need for the Titans. For more analysis on the Tennessee Titans pick and what's to come in the draft, check out the Locked On Titans podcast today.
What's up, everybody? Luke Braun here from Locked On Vikings. The Vikings have selected their first-round pick at pick number 23 after trading down. They select Christian DARRISAW, the offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. He's a good scheme fit despite kind of not looking like one. He's a much more powerful lineman than the Vikings have drafted in the past. It kind of rebukes a philosophy that has bitten them in the past, so it might be a nice breath of fresh air to get somebody with a little bit more anchor and a little bit less speed. That said, it doesn't mean that he's not a zone scheme fit. He can reach block very well. He can get to the second level, even if it looks like he's very slow in doing so. He finds his way to the spot, and that's what's important. He does have a little bit of an issue with finishing plays, and there are some footwork things that need to be cleaned up, but in the first round, an offensive tackle that can start day one, that's what you're looking for. And now, after the trade down, the Vikings are very, very set up to get one of the edge rushers in the second round, and there is a huge glut of them. So they're very, very well set up to navigate this draft to fill the two major holes that they had on offensive line and tomorrow on defensive line.
Hi, I'm Tony Wiggins with Locked On Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars have used the 25th pick in the NFL Draft to select Travis Etienne, the running back out of Clemson. The Jaguars surprised a lot of people in this area by going offense again and selecting a running back after they had a lot of production from James Robinson last year. However, Urban Meyer talked all offseason about adding more explosiveness to the offense. Chunk plays, they needed home run ability, and he watched Travis Etienne do that in college. Trevor Lawrence got his teammate, he got his running mate from Clemson. The fans are going to be a little bit confused by this because James Robinson was so good as a rookie last year. But this is going to give the Jaguars two players at that position and one which is a home run threat, either running the ball or catching and receiving it. And Trevor Lawrence needs as many weapons as he can. And this is what you do when you're 1-15. You add talent. So Travis Etienne is now the new running back who's going to compete for a starting position here in Jacksonville, along with Trevor Lawrence, his running mate at Clemson.
This is Jeff Lloyd, your host of Locked On Browns, with the 26th overall selection in the 2021 NFL Draft. The Cleveland Browns have selected Gregory Newsome II, cornerback out of Northwestern University. We've talked about the big need in the secondary for the Cleveland Browns. Joe Woods wants to play nickel and dime predominantly. The Browns, as of now, with two serviceable cornerbacks on their roster. Greedy Williams, time will tell with his shoulder impingement and how long that is going to hold him up. Newsome missed some time at Northwestern, but a big-bodied cornerback. We've talked about a player like this being the difference in solving the issue of a Chase Claypool, for example, from the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Browns were in on secondary. The Browns did not have to trade up. They played the game, and they played it well. Andrew Berry hit a home run today, not just with the birth of his daughter, but also with his first-round pick in Greg Newsome II out of Northwestern University. For all the best daily Cleveland Browns coverage, check out Locked On Browns on Odyssey, Spotify, and iTunes.
What's going on, everybody? Ross Jackson here, host of Locked On Saints. The New Orleans Saints have made their selection at pick 28 after all the conversation about them potentially trading up into the top 10, which they did inquire to the Denver Broncos on that, an attempt to move up to pick number 9. And then all the conversation around potentially addressing cornerback and linebacker. Here they are taking a defensive end at pick 28 and Houston defensive lineman Payton Turner. Now, Payton Turner is a late riser in this draft. Not a lot of talk around him getting started, but he's a traits guy. He's a really good character guy, high quality, all of that. And he has all the athleticism packed into a 6'5", draft, 270-plus pound frame, 10 sacks in his career, along with 25 tackles for a loss. He is somebody that has a very, very high ceiling, but we have to figure out where the floor is. For more on Peyton Turner and what the Saints may be looking to do for the rest of this NFL draft with 6 rounds remaining, make sure you check out the Locked On Saints podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Green Bay Packers have a new quarterback, and even though Aaron Rodgers may not be stoked about it, this Packers defense just might be. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and the Green Bay Packers, with the 29th pick, take Eric Stokes, cornerback from Georgia. He is a 6'1", 185-pound physical marvel. Ran in the 4.2s at his pro day, jumped over 40 inches, and he is someone who can play press man coverage. He can play off coverage. His movement skills mean he can play just about anywhere, and he has experience playing in the slot, so he could compete right away to play that star position, compete with Shannon Sullivan for snaps, and could even push Kevin King on the outside, could push Jair Alexander into the slot in some situations so that Stokes can play outside. This is a guy with terrific upside based on the physical tools, and is someone who created turnovers while at Georgia, something Green Bay, at least in the secondary from their cornerback position, has not been able to do consistently over the last few years. It was not the pass catcher. They decided to take Stokes over someone like Elijah Moore or Rondale Moore, but he is someone who, if you had told Packer fans after the NFC Championship game that they would be taking a freak athlete cornerback who has over 1,000 cover snaps in his college career to come in after the Kevin King debacle, I think a lot of fans would tell you they'd take it.
I'm Joe Marino, host of the Locked On Bills podcast, and with the 30th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Bills selected Gregory Rousseau, the defensive end from Miami. This was a big need for the Buffalo Bills, where starters Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison are both in their mid-30s and both are on expiring contracts. The Bills needed to add youth to this position, and in Rousseau, they get a guy that fits what they'd like. Long arms, heavy hands, the type of defensive ends that can reduce rush angles. And Rousseau's a guy that I don't know is going to help them a ton in year one, but if they wind up moving on from Addison or Hughes after this season, they can pair him with second-round pick from 2020, AJ Epinesa, and provide them with their defensive end pair for the future. For more analysis, check out the Locked On Bills podcast wherever you get podcasts.
The Baltimore Ravens selecting 2 players in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. This is Kevin Oestreicher of the Locked On Ravens podcast. Baltimore staying put at both 27 and 31, selecting Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver from Minnesota, with the 27th overall selection, and then selecting Jason Owe, the pass rusher from Penn State, with the 31st overall selection. The Ravens get 2 quality players at positions of need for the team, both that can make an impact early but also develop over the course of their Ravens career. For more on the Ravens, be sure to tune into the Locked On Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
David Harrison and James Yarko here at the Locked On Bucks podcast. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, defending Super Bowl champions, sticking at pick 32 to wrap up day one of the 2021 NFL Draft. Coming into it, James and I have been talking about a team that has no needs can look to the future. And when you're looking at the depth chart and you're looking at some of the older players, some of the contract players, you look at the edge position, you look at the defensive line, and a little bit on the offensive line as well. So those were targets coming into day one for us, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, a few surprises in the first round, but the Buccaneers had their choice of some really solid defensive players, and in the end, they went with University of Washington edge rusher Joe Tryon, and that was a name that has been picking up some steam around Buccaneer circles lately, earlier in the week and heading into draft night. But Joe Tryon, a guy that will be a rotational player for the Buccaneers, working with Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett, developing, getting rid of some of those issues that he has, some of the shortcomings in college, but a really, really raw talent and someone who will fit really well in Todd Bowles' scheme.
Yeah, so someone coming from the same position in the network's Ultimate Mock Draft 2021, we took Miami edge rusher Gregory Rousseau. to fill this exact same role. Honestly, had Joe Tryon a little bit higher up on the board just because of some of the raw athleticism. Both prospects have some of the same issues, which is a lack of playing time. A lot of it not something that they can control, but still kind of a fact as it goes. But the Buccaneers dip their toes back into the Husky pool, already having a lot of success with defensive lineman Vita Vea. So going right back to that university, going back to that program to bring another key defensive player, someone who's going to bring some speed, some athleticism to the team as a depth player in year one, and then potentially could become a starter as soon as 2022 if necessary.
For more on this pick and all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers, make sure you check out the Locked On Bucs podcast 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.